maybe.
Prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
This is Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to sell effectively. And boring old me's in Asheville, North Carolina. And Mark is in Milan.
Buongiorno from a Milano. Yes. But hey, we're doing the show as scheduled, as we always do. And that's part of the whole sales thing. Just, you got to show up, right?
You got to show up. It's most of it.
And we do. We got a great show plan because we're going to be talking about, do you need a social selling strategy? And for the lightning round, we're going to talk about the top 10 favorite sales tools you and I use. So great topic. So
yeah, really good topic.
Do we need a social selling strategy?
Absolutely, you need a social selling strategy. I mean, I think the biggest reason you need a social selling strategy is the fact that your buyers are there. But Mark, I love this topic for a number of reasons. Is that I don't think most of us have a social selling strategy. I just think we are on social media with kind of no rhyme or reason or thought to that. So I think we need to back up and even talk about this isn't whether you or not you need to be on social media. This is whether you need a social media, basically a strategy around it.
Well, and don't get on social media unless you do have a strategy. And the last thing people can be doing, and I'm glad Bryn Tillman's already jumping in on this because I was hoping Bryn would jump in
me
on
too.
this.
There is the master.
Yeah. Because I mean, I hate social selling when it comes down to it's not social and it's not selling because all you're doing is doing connect and pitch. That's a line from Bryn Tillman. And I absolutely hate that. But social selling is about creating relationships and it's about letting the people get to know who you are and you getting to know them. It's social. It's a key piece in the word. Hello.
Yeah, so I think we can end the show right now because Bryn has tapped in and given us the 8 steps to it. She says, establish your goals and 8 KPIs. Absolutely. I mean, what are you even doing on there? Buyer mapping. Where do your buyers go? What are they looking for? What are they interested? I think one of the biggest things is what do they pay attention to? Tool stack alignment, content strategy, customized playbook, value-centric profile, social selling training, measure, and coach.
And let's start unpacking those because one of the things that I see is I see a lot of people just spraying a lot of stuff out there on a lot of different channels. Only beyond those channels where your marketplace is. I mean, you and I very heavy into LinkedIn because that's where our marketplace is. Yeah, we may play around in some others, but our content is geared around LinkedIn. My whole strategy is LinkedIn first. And then you figure out whether or not it might play in other areas, but it's all about LinkedIn.
Yeah, I also think that you need to think about, what your audience is looking for when they go there. Like somebody who goes to Facebook is looking for something very different than somebody who goes to LinkedIn is looking very different from somebody who goes to Instagram or even to X these days. I mean, it's very, very different what people are looking for and who goes to what, right? I mean, here's another social media guru, Gina Carr. She says social selling strategy is critical for most business owners.
I totally agree on that. And you know what's interesting? You mentioned because different demographics, Instagram plays to a younger generational perspective. So if that's your audience, that's naturally where you should play. And can business be done on Instagram? I know a lot of business people, people in our space of work that are very heavy into Instagram. That's great. That's fine. LinkedIn is too. Facebook, no. I mean, you can get into Snapchat, you can get into all these other places, even TikTok. Now, TikTok requires a completely different strategy because I couldn't take some of my content and just throw it out on TikTok. It would get lost and it'd be an absolute waste of time because the user is looking for a totally different experience. And that's the other piece. You got to curate your content to reach the, like you said, the expectations of the audience person for that channel.
Yeah, I think that, going back to Bryn's comment, I think you need to be really, really clear about what you want from what your goals and objectives are around social strategy. This is a mistake I think people miss all the time. I hear a lot of people say, I don't do social media. And okay, but it's saying volumes about you not doing it. It tells me you're not relevant. It tells me you're not with the program. It tells me you're not willing to engage and participate. It tells me you're not willing to do what it takes to do business, even though you may not like some of the things. It tells me volumes about you.
Yeah. Now, there are some industries where social media, social selling is not as prevalent. I do work in some dirty industrial manufacturing, and social media is not a big play. Okay, I understand that. But here's the deal, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because they will come around to it. Because here's the thing, regardless of the industry you're in, no customer is going to engage with you without first going to the internet. What does the internet say? And this is where LinkedIn is kind of, I'm going to throw myself under the bus being an old person. It's the good housekeeping seal of approval. Yeah, I know that doesn't exist anymore. At least I don't think it exists anymore. But what comes up first many times from a typical search? And even if you're doing AI, this is very critical because we're moving from SEO into GEO, generative engine optimization. So putting content out there on LinkedIn that AI engines can pick up, absolutely critical, absolutely key.
Yeah, I love what Natalie is saying here. She said she gets pitched all the time with cold outreach without content. It's always about their service and not about building relationship first. And I feel like what social media did for us is allowed us to build a larger scale of relationships, meaning we could reach a lot more people that a networking opportunity did not necessarily, not necessarily allow us to do. The other is it's easier to maintain relationships. It's easier to stay in touch with people. One of the reasons I do Facebook, and I don't do it very often, but I do it because I just want to keep up with people. I want to know when, people have a grandbaby. I want to know when people get a great opportunity. I want to know when something tragic happens in their lives. I want to keep up with people that I don't necessarily have the time to keep up with face to face.
And that's a smaller circle. That's a smaller circle than you and I see and experience on LinkedIn. Yesterday, I spoke here in Milan, and large audience, and a number of these people are communicating me here today. And then many people are probably listening because I told them about Sales Logic, and they're checking out the show. Why? Because they can. So it allows us to have a much bigger marketplace. Now, stop and think about that. It allows you to have a bigger marketplace, but it allows your competitors to have a bigger marketplace. You talk about having a competitive set, it's bigger than ever because of social media.
Yeah, I love what Bryn again is saying here. She said the social selling needs to integrate into the full sales process. Could not include enough. And she gets down here, you can read it in the show notes, but she really talks about the fact that you use a lot of social media for pre-call planning and for research. I mean, there's so much value to it, right? But Mark, I think one of the biggest things that people don't think about when it comes to social media is the fact that you need to think about what you're putting out there. I've been watching this last week with everything in the US so heightened politically, which seems to be the call of the day, right? Doesn't matter what's going on, but it seems to be constantly heightened. And I'm amazed at the number of people who post things that they post them in a way that are offensive if you do not agree with your views. And I just wonder what people are thinking and what they're doing with that. And I don't think that social media, other than X, is really a place for, the political landscape. So I think it's important for you to look at what the platform stands for. I remember seeing a political post on LinkedIn, and as well as a kind of a silly post on LinkedIn. And the comments below it were, this is not the channel for this. If you want to do political, go to X. If you want to do fun or silly, go to Facebook. And so I think it's got to be an important part of your strategy is you need to understand the platform, what's out there, and then you need to think about who's reading it.
Yes, that is true. Now, I'm gonna add a little piece though. There is a space out there for being a little more personal because again, we're really into this era now of authentic relationships. So I think doing a little bit of that can play in. But again, it's not like Facebook where it's 90% personal. It's not like Pinterest. It's not like many of these other places. No. This is much more geared. So again, it's you have to understand where your platform is. I love the comment. Hey, Mastermind member Natalie jumps in that she gets all the time with cold outreach. And this is one of the things that turns people off. I mean, you and I probably have a LinkedIn channel with so many messages that we've never read and never intend to, because again, all people are doing is trying to pitch, pitch, pitch. No, you can't do that. Dave Sanderson's jumping in. He says, yes, yes, I need to lean in, but I don't have time. Okay, now let's talk about time. Having a LinkedIn strategy does not mean that you devote 2 hours a day to social media. No, no, you can do it quite quickly. But the key is don't post and ghost. Again, I'm quoting you, Bryn. I know you're listening. Bryn Tillman, post and ghost. You've got to post and engage. You've got to post and engage. That means have conversations, because otherwise LinkedIn's going to pick that up and they're not going to push your post out there. They're not going to push you. It's so critical. Social selling. It's not selling social. It's social selling.
Yeah, I think Bryn's giving a great tip here too. Before you hit post, ask yourself if the content you're posting is working toward or against your goal. I think that's a great tip, Bryn. I'm going to pick that up. I've never really thought about that. Before. I'll tell you, Mark, you made a point that I want to pick up on that I think is so important. Is we tend to, when we're in business or we're in sales, we tend to think so much about these things as getting out and getting the connection that we want, connecting to the person that we want to connect to. But it's also about allowing people to get to know you and to realize that you're more about sales and more about business, and see who you are and what your values are and and the things that you care about. And I had gotten away from that type of posting, and I've really made a vow this year to get back into it this last quarter of the year, because I hadn't really been revealing a lot of that. And I do think it's very important.
It is, but we can't overwhelm that. But you do have to let people understand who you are as an individual, and that's this authentic piece. But again, let's come back to something that you said. It seems like every week in the U.S., it's a political storm of something. No post is going to change somebody's opinion. So don't think for a moment that you're going to put some post out there and it's going to change the world. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Now, if you're into clickbait, get out of here, because again, I have no use for clickbait. A lot of people love to post stuff that's clickbait, and that is damaging to everybody. Hey, we do need to jump in. Gene, I'm going to hold on to your comment here for just a moment, because we got a question from our listener this week, Rowena in the British Virgin Islands. She says she's active on LinkedIn, but I'm not seeing results. I'm so frustrated. I listen every week, so I thought I'd ask the experts. Should I double down on posting more, or is there a smarter way to turn my online presence into real sales conversations? And I asked the brain the Sales Logic Mastermind brain, and the key thing it came back to was be consistent. Be consistent. And when you post, make sure that you monitor that within the first couple of hours to be able to engage with people as they connect with you. And slowly but surely, again, it's a long tail, it takes time, but your post will begin to reach more and more people. But don't think for a moment your post will ever reach 100% of your audience. LinkedIn just doesn't work that way, period.
Yeah, I love what Gina's saying here. She said, I support people sharing their views. However, my decision to refer people to do business with them is affected by my extreme views, which is exactly the point, right? Like, you wouldn't walk into a networking event and set up, like you wouldn't walk into the Chamber of Commerce, you wouldn't walk into an industry trade show and just start to say something that could alienate a third or a half of the room there. No, you'd focus on what you're there to do, and what you're there to do is to focus on trying to figure out how you can help people. But I want to answer our listener from the British Virgin Islands. How freaking lucky are you? A couple of things there. Number one, a piece we've not talked about first, which I think would be really important. You got to measure, track, and learn from your social media posts. Certain posts get looked at and certain ones don't. Certain ones get comments and certain don't. And so every month on my team, we look at my social media. We look at what got traction, what didn't get traction, and we adjust from there. I can tell you which of my blog posts have been the most read. I can tell you, which of my posts on social media have gotten the most engagement. And I try to learn from my own behavior in my own posts. So I would say that's a good place to start.
And another piece like that, for instance, the podcast. Right now, we do the podcast and podcast. Okay, that's Spotify, Apple Music, etc. But here we are doing it live, streaming it to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, because again, we're able to attract a live audience. And this is the other thing that you got to think: how can you use your social media strategy, social selling, to be across multiple platforms where it's appropriate? We don't put our podcast out on TikTok. We don't put it out on Pinterest. In other words, we put it in the channels that are appropriate for where our content lives. What does this do? I think it allows you to have a much more efficient, because this is the thing, people say, I can't get on LinkedIn because it just takes too much time. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't take that much time if you have a strategy of when you're doing it and what you're doing.
I also think it takes too much time. That's like saying to me, putting together a prospect list takes too much time. I was sitting yesterday afternoon trying to catch a flight home, and I was scrolling through a lot of times when I'm sitting on planes, because I'm always first to board, and or I'm waiting on the flight, is when I scroll social media the most. And yesterday I was scrolling through my social media, looking at the friend request and accepting things. And there was a woman in there who'd heard me speak at an event that had been 3 days before, and she wanted to hire me for a leadership program. She wanted to set up a call, but she'd already referred me to the bureau. I can't imagine that is a waste of my time. I mean, if you want to grow business, the best way to grow business is to interact with people. I mean, bar none. There's no organization I can do at my desk. There's no piece of content that I can write. I mean, it's why you give me any opportunity to be client facing, and I'm going to take it. It's the highest and best use of my time. So I don't know how you can think that social media would be a quote unquote waste of your time. You may be ineffective at it, but there's an opportunity for improvement there. But it gives you an opportunity to be client facing.
It certainly does. But you have to make it part of your routine. If you think about our podcast, we've been doing this podcast now for 5 or 6 years. We're about 258 shows into it. But it became a ritual when we committed to a certain time every week, Saturday mornings. We committed to that time. And really, it's just become very logical. It's become very logical. Gee, that's part of the name. It's routine. And this is the key thing. You've got to make social media be part of your routine. How and when you do it, that's up to you to decide. I love Natalie's comment. Yes, love the live introduction every Saturday, because it creates momentum and community here and beyond. And this is the other key piece. Remember, when you post things on social media, you've got to have a little bit of a hook to kind of pull people in initially. Because if you don't, you're going to kind of lose them. They're never. You may be posting some great content, but people never read it. Now, there's still a reason to be posting great content, because maybe the three people who you want to read it are going to read it. But you'd like to. It's called the World Wide Web for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what John Wong is saying here. He said, you're going to contact, educate, and engage, all while making your audience think. I think that's the other. I mean, it's such good piece of feedback, John, is don't just post to post. Put really good content out there, meaningful content that will really, really add value and help people understand the value you can bring to the marketplace, or the value they would gain if they were going to be doing business with you.
And it really isn't that hard, because again, if you're focused on doing what you're doing, you're going to be able to create content and be able to put that out there. And one of the things that you always got to say is, how often do you post? I was with somebody yesterday having lunch with them here in Milan, and they said they post 3 days a week. And I made the comment, I said, we post 6 to 7 days a week. And he looked at me like, wow. He said, but our audience has come to expect it. And we post at pretty much a dedicated time each day. And what does it allow? It allows our audience to understand. And again, LinkedIn, because again, that's our primary focus, picks it up and spreads it, not to my full audience. I wish they did. LinkedIn, if you're listening, could you spread it? No, but they won't. But again, certain posts get traction. Go back to you. You look at what's happened over the course of the month. You see which posts resonated. Doesn't that tell you what ideas, what thoughts, where your customers are at? Wow, you talk about being able to sell better. Use a tool like LinkedIn to find out where your customers' pain points are.
Yeah, Mark, we are burning time, and you have
Yes.
a beautiful city to explore with your lovely bride. So let's talk about the book and hit that lightning round.
Yes, the book is Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. In fact, it's interesting, at the event I was speaking at yesterday, thank you, Performance Strategies, for bringing me over. They have a library, kind of a bookstore, and Fanatical Prospecting, translated into Italian, was on the shelf there. So Fanatical Prospecting, it is an excellent book. It's been out about 10 years now, but it's still just as effective as it was back then.
Actually, if Bryn is still listening, I'd love for you to put in the show notes the book that you and Jeb did recently, because I think that's a great book recommendation for today as well. You got two sales experts, masters, legends in the industry, combining together to give us all the relevant and great information that we need to be effective in the marketplace.
Yeah, I just had her on my other podcast the other day, and yeah, she and Jeb just came together to create this LinkedIn book. Jeb's going to be on my podcast here in a couple of weeks. So anyway, that's a great book also. Okay, ready for the lightning round?
I am ready for the lightning round.
Top 10 favorite sales tools. Go.
Right now, just to keep with what we're talking about, is ChatGPT is one of my favorite, absolutely one of my favorite sales tools in programming it.
I'm going to say Spotify, because every morning when I'm working out, I'm listening to a business podcast, learning, educating myself.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm going to add to that, and I'm going to say Audible. I listen to a sales book at least on a weekly basis, and it makes it so busy, so easy.
I love that. I love that. And of course, we got to get CRM system. My CRM system is Zoho. That is a sales tool that is on all the time, whenever my computer is on.
Yeah, mine as well. I'm going to add inside Zoho. I use Zoho Sign, kind of like a DocuSign. Literally has changed my life, and one of the best tools that I've been using.
LinkedIn Navigator, excellent tool. It's a premium feature in LinkedIn, but it gives you a tremendous amount of additional information to help you prospect and stay engaged with potential customers.
I was using Vidyard to do a lot of video, but now I've moved over and I'm using OneMob quite a bit, and so that's a great sales tool for me.
That's excellent. I use Evernote also. That's not a sales tool. It's just a simple tool that I use. It's my notepad, and it integrates with all my other tools, but it allows me to capture all my notes and moves it right over to Zoho very quickly, very easily.
The last one that I'm going to throw out there is one that we all use, but it's probably the sales tool that I use more than anything. But I do probably 90% of my sales conversations on Zoom. I mean, I just use it constantly.
I love that. I'm going to add one more, and then we're going to close the show down. YouTube, it's amazing the amount of educational content. In other words, I'll go out and I'll use chat, like you said at the beginning. Perplexity, I'm using that more and more now. But then it will route me back over, and there's a video I want to watch. And again, it's a very excellent tool. Hey, the LinkedIn Edge, God, you bet. Got my copies yesterday. That's the new book, written by Bryn and Jeb. So it's coming out very, very shortly here. So anyway, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Something we've said has earned you a single dollar. Consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. So you go out and get the LinkedIn Edge. I'm super excited about it. I got a sneak peek because I got to give a testimonial for the book, but cannot recommend it a month. And integrate social selling into your platform. You're going to be so glad you did. Mark, go enjoy Milan for the rest of us. And we'll see you all right back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Sales Logic. Now go close a deal.